everything. Waking up one morning and realizing that every limitation you ever believed in, every doubt, every fear, every excuse, was just a program running in your mind. A script you never wrote, everything, but have been following for years. Now imagine what would happen if you rewrote that script, consciously, intentionally, with beliefs designed for success, strength, everything, and unshakable confidence. This audiobook isn't about wishful thinking or empty motivation, everything. It's about mastering the inner mechanics of your mind, learning how to reprogram your thoughts, emotions, and habits to create the life you've always known you were capable of living, everything. Because success isn't luck, it's alignment between your mindset and your mission. And once you learn to control that alignment, everything changes, everything. Think of your mind as an operating system, a complex, powerful, invisible engine that controls everything you do, think, and feel. Every decision you make, every reaction you have, everything. Every moment you doubt yourself or rise to a challenge. It all comes from this inner code that's been written quietly over the years. Everything. You weren't born with most of your current beliefs. You learned them, absorbed them, repeated them until they became part of the system that runs your life. When you were a child, everything, your mind was wide open. You were like a sponge, downloading information from everything and everyone around you. The tone of your parents' voices, everything, the way people reacted when you made mistakes, the stories you heard about money, success, or love. All of it became data written into your subconscious, everything. And because a child's mind doesn't yet know how to question, it doesn't evaluate whether those messages are true or useful. It just records them. So if someone told you everything, even indirectly, that you weren't good enough, that life is hard, or that success only happens to other people, everything, those words may still be running in the background today, like hidden code shaping how you see yourself and what you believe you deserve. Now, everything. Imagine if your computer was running old software from 10 years ago. It would freeze, glitch, slow down, and crash when faced with modern challenges. Everything. You'd never blame the computer. You'd just update the software. Yet, when it comes to our own minds, most of us never think to do that. Everything. We keep running the same outdated beliefs that were installed when we were 7, 10, 15 years old, and then wonder why we can't seem to move forward. The truth is, everything. There's nothing wrong with you. You've just been programmed. And the best news, programs can be rewritten. The subconscious mind is like the silent architect of your reality. Everything. It operates about 95% of your daily life. When you drive home without thinking, when you automatically reach for your phone, everything, when you hesitate before taking a big opportunity. That's your subconscious at work. It runs habits, emotions, everything, and responses automatically so your conscious mind can focus on what's new or uncertain. It's a brilliant design, but it has one flaw. Everything. The subconscious doesn't judge right from wrong, helpful from harmful. It just obeys whatever it's been taught. Everything. If the program says, "I'm not good enough," your subconscious will faithfully execute that instruction. It will filter opportunities, people, everything, and experiences to make sure your external reality matches your internal code. That's why people who believe they're unlucky often experience more bad luck. Everything. It's not that the universe is punishing them. It's that their mind is filtering out options and decisions that could lead to success. Everything. The same way your phone's algorithm shows you what you already like, your brain shows you what it already believes. And until you update the belief, everything, the system keeps repeating the same results. There's a powerful story about a man who spent years struggling with money. He worked hard, switched jobs, even started small businesses, everything. But somehow every time he got ahead, something would happen. A bad investment, a loss, an unexpected bill. He couldn't understand why. One day, while reflecting on his childhood, everything, he remembered how his father used to say, "Rich people are greedy. They take advantage of others." Without realizing it, he had absorbed that belief. Deep down, everything, his subconscious associated wealth with being a bad person. So every time he started earning more, everything, his mind created ways to bring him back to what felt morally safe. Once he rewired that belief, by repeating new, positive associations with money and success, everything changed. Everything. Within a year, his finances transformed. The external world shifted the moment his internal program did. Awareness is the first step toward change. Everything. You can't reprogram what you're not aware of, so begin by noticing your patterns, not judging them, just observing them. Ask yourself, everything, what are the results that keep repeating in my life? Do I often feel like I'm not enough? Do I avoid risks? Do I sabotage opportunities? Everything. Behind every repeated behavior lies a belief, and behind every belief lies a story you once accepted as truth. When you trace the story back, you begin to see it for what it really is. Everything. An old piece of programming, not your identity. Sometimes that awareness comes in quiet moments. You might catch yourself saying, everything. That's just how I am. But pause for a second. Is it really who you are, or just who you learned to be? The difference is life-changing. Everything. That's just how I am usually means that's the program I've been running. Once you understand that, you can begin the process of rewriting it. Everything. Neuroscience now proves that the brain can be rewired. Through repetition and focus, new neural pathways are created. Essentially, new programs. Everything. The brain doesn't care whether a thought is true or false. It only cares whether it's repeated. So if you keep telling yourself, I'm confident, I'm capable, everything, I'm growing stronger every day, your brain begins to reorganize itself to support that identity. At first, it may feel fake, but that's only because the old program is still louder. Everything. With time and consistency, the new one becomes dominant. Think of it like replacing a song that's been stuck in your head for years. Everything. You can't delete the old tune by force. You replace it by playing a new one, over and over, until it becomes the soundtrack you naturally hum without thinking. Everything. The same principle applies to mindset. You can't fight old beliefs, you override them with better ones. Let's make this practical. Everything. Take an area of your life where you feel stuck. Maybe confidence, finances, health, or relationships. Ask yourself, everything. What would someone who is successful in this area believe? Write down the kind of thoughts that person might think every day. I'm resourceful. I'm disciplined. Everything. I'm open to opportunity. I deserve respect. Then, compare them to the thoughts you usually think. The gap between the two reveals your current programming. Everything. Your job isn't to judge the gap. It's to close it, thought by thought, habit by habit. You may have moments of resistance. Your mind might say, this isn't true. Everything. I've always failed before. That's just the old code defending itself. It's trying to protect you from change, because change feels unsafe to the subconscious. Everything. But remember, comfort and growth never coexist. The discomfort you feel when you challenge your old identity is not a sign of failure. It's the sound of the old program breaking apart. Everything. There's a moment in every transformation where the old and new versions of you start to overlap. The part of you that still doubts, and the part that's learning to believe. Everything. This between space can feel confusing, but it's actually sacred. It's the point where you're consciously reprogramming your reality. Every time you choose a new thought, everything, you're installing a new piece of software. Every time you take an action that aligns with your higher self, you're strengthening the new system. Eventually, everything. It becomes automatic, not because you forced it, but because repetition made it real. Even the smallest changes in thinking can create massive changes in life. A person who used to say, everything, I can't do that, and replaces it with, I'm learning to do that, is opening a door the old program would have kept locked. Over time, everything, that single shift in language, from limitation to possibility, can reshape an entire destiny. The process is ongoing. You'll notice old patterns trying to reappear. Everything, especially when you're under stress. That's normal. Think of them like pop-up windows from old software. You don't panic. You just close them and reopen the new system. No, everything. I don't run that belief anymore. You tell yourself, I've upgraded. And the more often you do that, the faster your subconscious learns what to follow. Everything. There's something profoundly freeing about realizing that your mind is programmable. It means you're not a victim of your past. You're the designer of your future. Everything. The same way a developer writes code to make an app function differently, you can write new mental code to make your life operate differently. You don't have to fight your mind. Everything. You have to teach it. You don't have to erase your past. You have to reframe it. You might have been told that change takes years, but the truth is everything. Change happens in an instant. The moment you see clearly that you are not your programming. What takes time is the practice of living from that realization. Everything. Each day you become a little more aware, a little more intentional, a little more aligned with the person you want to be. And that alignment, that quiet, everything, steady reprogramming, is where real success begins. Because success isn't about forcing yourself to become someone new. Everything. It's about remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. Everything. Once you understand that your mind is just an operating system, one that you have full access to rewrite, you stop fearing failure, rejection, or uncertainty. Everything. You start to see life as it truly is, a field of possibilities waiting to be programmed by your focus, your beliefs, and your choice to grow. Everything. That's the beginning of true power. Not the kind that shouts or fights, but the kind that calmly says, I am the author of my thoughts, and therefore, everything, the creator of my reality. And when you start living from that place, everything begins to change. Quietly at first, then all at once. Everything. Have you ever noticed how certain thoughts seem to whisper the same message over and over again? Everything. You're not ready yet. You don't have what it takes. What if you fail? These phrases often sound like truth, but in reality, they are echoes from old experiences. Everything. Shaping how you see yourself without you even realizing it. This is where the cycle of limiting beliefs begins. It's not that you lack ability or intelligence or opportunity. Everything. It's that somewhere along the way, you began to believe a story about yourself that wasn't fully yours. And the moment you start to question that story, you start to reclaim your power. Everything. Let's start here. Every human being is born limitless. A child doesn't hesitate to dream big or try something new. Everything. A child doesn't worry about looking foolish when learning to walk or speak or dance. But over time, something changes. Someone laughs when we try. Someone criticizes when we fail. Everything. Someone tells us that we're not that kind of person or that certain dreams are unrealistic. Slowly, those words get absorbed. And before long, everything. They become the inner dialogue that runs silently in the background of our adult lives. Everything. That's how beliefs are built. Repetition and emotion. The same formula that later becomes the key to reprogramming them. Everything. Think back for a moment to a time when you felt completely confident doing something, maybe a skill, a hobby, or a moment when you knew you belonged. In that state, everything. There's no hesitation. You just act. But the mind doesn't only record those empowering moments. It also records moments of pain, embarrassment, and rejection. Everything. Each time you experience something emotionally charged, your subconscious remembers it. Not as a neutral event, but as a rule for the future. Everything. Maybe you were told, you're not smart enough in school, or you're too quiet to lead, or people like you don't succeed like that. The words sting. Everything. And your brain, trying to protect you, quietly says, okay, let's never experience that pain again. So it builds walls, invisible, protective, and incredibly limiting. Everything. These walls can take many forms. For one person, it's procrastination. For another, it's perfectionism. The belief that you have to get everything right before taking the first step. Everything. For someone else, it's self-sabotage, like pushing away opportunities that feel too good to be true. The truth is, these behaviors aren't failures of willpower. Everything. They're defense mechanisms, strategies the subconscious uses to keep you within the boundaries of what it believes is safe. Everything. One of the most powerful ways to break free from this cycle is to first see it clearly. You can't change what you can't name. Everything. Start paying attention to the moments when you feel resistance. That tightness in your chest before speaking up, that sudden wave of doubt before you take a leap. Everything. That quiet voice that says, who do you think you are? Those are your clues. Behind each one is a belief that was never chosen consciously, but now drives your behavior automatically. Everything. Here's a story that illustrates this perfectly. A man named Daniel spent most of his life believing he wasn't creative. In school, everything. A teacher once told him his artwork wasn't very good, and though it was a small comment at the time, it stuck. Decades later, as an adult, everything. He still avoided anything that felt artistic. When asked to come up with ideas at work, he'd defer to others, saying, everything. I'm not really the creative type. It wasn't until a friend challenged him to revisit that belief that he realized how much it shaped his identity. They sat down, talked about it, everything, and Daniel saw the absurdity, how one careless comment from years ago had defined his entire perception of himself. The moment he questioned it, the belief began to lose power. Everything. That's the first step in dismantling limiting beliefs. Awareness. The second is questioning. Ask yourself, everything. Who told me this? Is it actually true? Can I find even one piece of evidence that contradicts it? The mind resists at first. Everything. Because beliefs like stability, even painful ones. But when you start to challenge the foundation, you'll often find that it's built on assumptions, not facts. For instance, everything. If you believe you're bad at relationships because of a few that didn't work out, that belief feels real. Everything. But is it true that you were bad at them? Or is it true that you were learning, evolving, and discovering what you needed? Everything. Those are two entirely different narratives. One creates shame, the other creates growth. Which one will move you forward? Everything. There's a technique used by psychologists and coaches called belief flipping. It's simple but profound. Everything. Take a limiting belief you hold. Something like, I always mess things up. Flip it into its opposite. I'm capable of learning and improving through every experience. Then, everything. Begin looking for evidence to support the new version. The brain loves consistency. The more evidence you feed it, the faster it begins to align with your new narrative. Over time, everything. This rewiring becomes automatic. Another practical exercise is writing. Sit down with a blank page and list the phrases you often say to yourself when you feel stuck. Everything. Things like, I'm too old. I don't have time. I'm not ready. Then next to each one, ask everything. Where did this come from? You might realize that most of those thoughts aren't yours at all. They belong to parents, teachers, or old social patterns. Everything, seeing them written out helps you detach. You stop identifying with them and start observing them. That shift, from identification to observation, is where personal freedom begins. Everything. Let's take an example you might relate to. Imagine someone who dreams of starting a business but keeps finding reasons not to. They say things like, everything. I don't have enough money, or I'm not experienced enough. Beneath those excuses lies a deeper belief. I don't trust myself to succeed. Until that core belief changes, everything. No amount of motivational talk will work. But once they reframe it to, I'm learning every day and can handle challenges as they come, suddenly possibilities open. Everything. Action becomes natural because the mind now works with you, not against you. Breaking the cycle also means learning to handle the discomfort that comes with growth. Everything. When you start stepping beyond your old limits, the subconscious panics. It says, this feels unsafe. You might feel fear, self-doubt, or even guilt for wanting more. Everything. But remember, those feelings are not warnings, they're withdrawal symptoms from your old identity. The brain is wired for familiarity, not happiness. It will cling to what it knows. Everything. Your job is to reassure it, to keep moving forward even when it feels uncomfortable, because comfort is not the same as safety. Growth is everything. There's something deeply liberating about realizing you no longer need to believe every thought that crosses your mind. Thoughts are suggestions, not commands. Everything. And beliefs are habits of thought, strengthened through repetition, weakened through disuse. Every time you challenge a limiting belief and choose a new one, everything, you're reprogramming the very structure of your mind. It helps to visualize your beliefs like roots in a garden. Some are deep and healthy: self-trust, compassion, resilience. Others, everything, the limiting ones, are like weeds. They choke growth if left unattended. You don't need to attack them violently. You just need to expose them to light. Awareness, questioning, everything, and consistent new action are the sunlight that weakens old roots. Slowly they fade, replaced by stronger, more supportive patterns. Everything. You'll notice something remarkable once you start this process. Life doesn't suddenly become perfect, but your relationship with it changes. Everything. Challenges that once triggered fear now spark curiosity. Setbacks no longer feel like proof of inadequacy, but opportunities to adapt. You start seeing yourself as capable, evolving, everything, and worthy. Not because someone told you so, but because you've experienced it firsthand. And that's the real power in breaking the cycle of limiting beliefs. Everything. It's not about becoming someone new. It's about removing what was never truly you in the first place. When the false layers fall away, what's left is clarity. The pure, everything, quiet strength that's been there all along. Take a deep breath and think about that for a moment. All the doubts, the fears, everything, the internal resistance. They were never signs that you couldn't. They were signs that your mind was trying to protect you from an old pain. But now, you have new tools. Everything. You have awareness, you have understanding. You know how to question, how to flip, how to rebuild. And slowly, step by step, those new truths take root. You begin to live differently. Everything. Speak differently, carry yourself differently. The weight of old beliefs lifts, and what's left is something lighter: freedom, possibility, everything. And a quiet certainty that you are more powerful than you were ever led to believe. Because you always were. You just forgot for a while. And now, you're remembering. Everything. Change begins quietly, not with fireworks or breakthroughs, but with repetition. Real transformation doesn't shout. It whispers through small everything. Consistent actions repeated long enough to rewrite the deepest layers of your mind. Every belief, every instinct, everything. Every automatic thought pattern you carry is the result of repetition. The things you've heard, felt, and told yourself over and over again. That's how the human brain learns everything, through reinforcement, through emotion, through habit. The good news is that what was programmed can be reprogrammed. The mind is not a prison, it's a system waiting for new instructions. Everything. Think about how a song gets stuck in your head. You don't choose it. You simply hear it enough times that your subconscious records it. Suddenly, it plays automatically. Everything. That's how most of our thoughts work. If you've told yourself for years that you're not good enough, not capable, or not ready, that phrase becomes your mental background music. Everything. You might not even notice it playing, but it's shaping your choices, your confidence, and your actions. Everything. Reprogramming your mindset is about replacing that old tune with one that aligns with who you want to be. It's not about pretending everything is perfect. Everything. It's about conditioning your brain to focus on progress, strength, and possibility until those thoughts become natural. Science backs this up. Everything. Neuroplasticity. The brain's ability to reorganize itself proves that your mind changes every day based on what you repeat. Each time you think a thought, a neural pathway fires. Everything. Repeat it often enough, and that pathway becomes stronger, faster, easier to access. Like a trail in the forest, it deepens with use. At first, everything. Building a new mental pattern feels awkward, like walking through tall grass with no clear path. But with repetition, the route becomes familiar. Eventually, it's automatic. Everything. That's how habits form. That's how new identities are built, not through willpower alone, but through consistent reinforcement until the new becomes normal. Everything. Let's make this more tangible. Imagine a person who wants to change their self-image. They've spent years feeling insecure, doubting their potential. Everything. They decide to begin affirmations, simple statements like, "I am confident," or "I am capable." The first few days, those words feel empty. Everything. Their brain rejects them because they conflict with years of programming. But they stay with it. Every morning, every night, they repeat those phrases out loud. Everything, not as wishful thinking, but as practice, a mental workout. They visualize themselves embodying those words. They attach emotion to them. They feel the confidence. Everything, even if it's just for a moment. At first, it's uncomfortable, but discomfort is the sign that the old program is being challenged. The subconscious mind doesn't like change. Everything. It prefers the familiar, even if the familiar is painful. But repetition wears down resistance. Day by day, the new words start to feel less foreign. After a few weeks, everything. Small changes appear. Posture shifts, decisions feel easier. Opportunities are noticed instead of ignored. Months later, what was once forced now feels natural. That's not magic. Everything. That's neuroplasticity in action. You see, emotion is the accelerator of change. Repetition alone can build a habit, but repetition with emotion imprints it into your nervous system. Everything. The brain pays attention to what feels intense. That's why we remember heartbreaks and triumphs so vividly, because they carried emotional charge. To reprogram effectively, everything. You must engage your feelings. When you say an affirmation, visualize it vividly. Feel the pride, the relief, the gratitude as if it were already true. Everything. That emotional vibration tells your subconscious, this matters. And when the brain decides something matters, it rewires faster. Everything. A simple example of this is athletes using visualization before major performances. They don't just imagine the movement, they feel it. Everything. Their heart rate increases as if they're actually on the field. Their muscles respond to the imagined experience. Everything. This emotional rehearsal activates the same neural circuits as physical practice. The mind doesn't fully distinguish between what's vividly imagined and what's real. Everything. That's why emotional repetition is so powerful. It tricks the brain into believing the new reality has already begun. But here's what most people get wrong. Everything. They think motivation alone will carry them through the process. They start strong, fueled by inspiration, but when emotion fades, they stop. Everything. That's where most transformations die. Not because the person wasn't capable, but because they confused excitement with commitment. Everything. Reprogramming your mind isn't a single moment of passion. It's 1,000 quiet repetitions after the motivation has worn off. It's brushing your mental teeth every day. Everything. cleaning out the negative thoughts before they decay your confidence. Think of a sculptor working with stone. The first few hits don't reveal much, but with patience and precision, the form begins to emerge. One strike at a time. That's what your daily habits do. Each repetition chips away at who you're not, revealing who you are meant to be. It's rarely dramatic. It's often tedious. But eventually the masterpiece becomes visible. If you want to reprogram your mind, start small but stay consistent. Pick one belief you want to change. Let's say it's, "I'm not good enough." Each day, replace that phrase with everything. "I am growing stronger every day." Don't just repeat it like a robot. Speak it with conviction. Look yourself in the mirror when you say it. Write it down in your journal. Whisper it before you fall asleep. Let it echo in your thoughts when you walk, when you work, when you doubt. Each repetition lays another neural brick in the foundation of your new mindset. And remember, your subconscious doesn't understand logic. It understands experience. You can't simply tell it something new, you have to show it. That means aligning your words with action. If you affirm confidence, take small steps that express it. Speak up once in a meeting. Post that idea you've been hiding. The moment your actions match your affirmations, the brain begins to accept them as real. It starts saying, "This is who I am now." That's when real rewiring happens. There's a powerful study about London taxi drivers. Before GPS, they had to memorize every street in the city, an enormous mental task. Researchers found that the part of their brain responsible for spatial memory was significantly larger than average. Why? Because they rehearsed it daily for years. Their brains physically adapted to their habits. Your mind does the same with whatever you practice most. If you constantly repeat thoughts of fear or scarcity, your brain becomes wired for them. If you train thoughts of confidence, gratitude, and abundance, your brain expands in those directions instead. So the question isn't whether your brain is being programmed. It already is. The real question is, who's in charge of the programming? Are you consciously installing the beliefs that serve your future, or are you unconsciously replaying the ones that limit you? The power of repetition is neutral. It will build either your cage or your wings. You decide which. There's a moment in every transformation when progress feels invisible. You'll repeat new thoughts and wonder if anything's changing. You'll feel like you're pretending, like you're lying to yourself. That's the most critical moment, the gap between the old and the new. The subconscious is testing your consistency. If you persist, it begins to yield. That's when breakthroughs happen. Not instantly, but gradually, quietly. One morning, you'll catch yourself reacting differently to a challenge. You'll speak up when you used to stay silent. You'll feel calm in situations that once made you anxious. That's how reprogramming shows up. Not in sudden bursts, but in subtle shifts that prove your identity is evolving. Understand this: the mind learns by seeing patterns. It doesn't care about one-time events. That's why repeating positive behaviors, even imperfectly, matters more than doing them perfectly once. Consistency beats intensity every time. A single workout won't transform your body, but 100 small ones will. A single affirmation won't rewrite your mind, but daily reinforcement will. The key is to show up for your new self long enough for your brain to trust that it's real. So when you practice reprogramming, make it a ritual. Pair it with something you already do, like brushing your teeth or making coffee. Anchor it in your routine so it becomes automatic, and always engage emotion. Don't just say, "I am confident." Feel your heartbeat strengthen as you say it. Picture the version of you who already lives that truth. Let the emotion make it real. Over time, repetition and emotion merge into identity. You stop trying to believe. You simply become. The most powerful people you admire aren't special, they're conditioned. They've trained their minds to respond with focus, calm, and certainty through years of repetition. Their confidence isn't luck, it's habit. And you can build the same. Because every thought you repeat with emotion is a command to your subconscious. Every day you choose consistency over comfort, you strengthen the new program. Eventually, it becomes who you are. Effortlessly, authentically, permanently. That's the art of reprogramming. It's not a one-time decision, it's a lifelong practice. Every repetition is a vote for the person you're becoming. And with each vote, the old you fades and the new one takes root, steady, confident, and unstoppable. There comes a moment in everyone's journey where motivation alone isn't enough. The fire that once pushed you forward starts to flicker. Challenges grow louder, pressure builds, everything. And suddenly, it feels as if life is testing every ounce of your will. It's in these moments that success separates the dreamers from the doers. Everything. Not because one group had more talent or luck, but because they built the one thing that keeps you grounded when the storm hits. Mental resilience. Everything. Resilience is the quiet strength that keeps you moving when logic says you should quit. It's not about pretending everything is fine or forcing positivity. Everything. It's about controlling your emotional state so that no external chaos can dictate your internal world. Think about it. The most successful people aren't those who avoid problems. Everything. They're the ones who remain clear, composed, and creative in the middle of them. That's not luck, that's training. Imagine an athlete preparing for a championship. Everything. They don't just train their body, they train their focus, their composure, their breathing. They rehearse staying calm when their heart is racing and the pressure is on. In the same way, everything. Mental resilience is something you practice daily. You build it by how you respond to discomfort, by what you tell yourself when things go wrong. Everything. And by how quickly you return to center after being knocked off balance. Let's talk about that. Returning to center. Because life will knock you off balance, repeatedly. Everything. You'll get bad news. A project will fail. People will disappoint you. Your plans will fall apart. These moments are not signs that you're off track. They're part of the training ground. Everything. Every setback is a test of how well you can stabilize your inner world when the outer one starts to crumble. The faster you recover your focus, the faster you rise. Everything. Think about someone you admire for their calm presence. Maybe it's a leader, an athlete, a mentor, or even a family member. What makes them so steady? Everything. It's not that they never feel emotion. It's that they've learned to pause before reacting. Everything. They understand that emotion is energy, and energy can either be wasted in panic or redirected into power. The ability to pause, breathe. Everything. And choose your response is one of the most valuable skills you can ever develop. Everything. There's a story about a CEO who faced a massive company crisis, a scandal that threatened everything she'd built. While her team panicked, everything. She took a single walk around the block before making a decision. She knew that reacting in chaos would only multiply the damage. That short pause wasn't avoidance, it was leadership. Everything. It was resilience in motion. When she came back, she had clarity, a plan, a direction, a tone that calmed everyone else. Because that's what resilient people do. Everything. They become the anchor in the storm. But how do you get there? How do you train your mind to remain calm and focused when everything feels like it's falling apart? Everything. It starts with emotional awareness. Noticing what's happening inside you without judgment. Most people never pause long enough to notice their reactions. They get angry, anxious, everything, or discouraged, and before they realize it, those emotions have already taken control. Awareness interrupts that pattern. When you catch yourself tightening up, everything, when you hear that voice of doubt creeping in, take a breath and name it. This is frustration. This is fear. Everything. This is uncertainty. Naming what you feel gives you space to choose instead of react. Once you create that space, everything. The next step is to shift your focus from what's happening to you to what's happening for you. Every obstacle has a lesson, a refinement, a strength it's trying to build in you. Everything. Maybe it's patience. Maybe it's humility. Maybe it's the discipline to keep going even when it's uncomfortable. When you look at challenges as training instead of punishment, everything. You stop fighting the process and start growing through it. That mental shift, from resistance to acceptance, is the foundation of resilience. Everything. There was a young entrepreneur who once said, "The day I stopped asking, 'Why is this happening to me?' and started asking, 'Everything. What is this teaching me?' was the day I began to grow." That's the essence of this chapter. Life doesn't get easier. You just get stronger. Everything. You don't pray for fewer problems. You train for better responses. And it's not just emotional toughness we're talking about. Everything. It's focus. The ability to keep your eyes on what matters even when distractions and noise surround you. In a world that constantly demands your attention, focus has become a superpower. Everything. It's what allows you to stay steady when everyone else is scattered. The key to focus isn't trying to control the world around you. It's managing your inner environment. Everything. When your thoughts are clear and your emotions are steady, your actions follow naturally. Here's a truth most people miss: resilience and focus are inseparable. Everything. You can't focus if your mind is constantly reacting to stress, and you can't be resilient if your focus keeps drifting to what's outside your control. Everything. That's why mental training must become part of your daily routine. Think of it like going to the gym, not for your body, but for your thoughts. Everything. Each time you practice staying calm under pressure, each time you choose patience over frustration, you're strengthening the muscle of resilience. Everything. One simple but powerful exercise is controlled breathing. When you feel your mind spinning, take a slow, deep breath in for 4 seconds, hold for 4, and exhale for 4. It sounds basic, everything, but it rewires your nervous system, signaling to your brain that you're safe. And when your brain believes you're safe, it can focus again. Great athletes, military leaders, everything, and performers use this exact method to reset their composure before critical moments. Because the body influences the mind, and the mind influences everything else. Now, everything. Let's be real. Resilience doesn't mean you'll never break down or lose focus. It means you learn how to recover quickly. Everyone stumbles. Everyone faces doubt. Everything. The question isn't whether you'll fall, it's how long you'll stay down. Mentally strong people don't waste energy blaming circumstances or wishing things were different. Everything. They accept what is, adjust, and move forward. They adapt, not because they don't feel pain, but because they've learned to carry it with purpose. Think about a bamboo tree. Everything. It bends in the wind, but doesn't break. Its strength lies in its flexibility. That's resilience, the ability to bend without snapping, to move with life rather than against it. Everything. When you develop that kind of mental flexibility, you stop seeing change as chaos. You start seeing it as rhythm. You begin to flow with it. Focus works the same way. Everything. It's not about staring harder or forcing concentration. It's about clarity, knowing what deserves your energy and what doesn't. A focused mind is a disciplined mind. Everything. It doesn't chase every thought or distraction. It returns, again and again, to the mission. When you train yourself to direct your attention deliberately, your productivity rises. Everything. Your stress lowers, and your sense of control returns. There's a powerful exercise you can practice daily. Choose one thing each morning that you will give your complete attention to. Everything. Not a list of 10 tasks, just one. Work on it fully without checking your phone, your notifications, or your doubts. Stay with it until it's done. Everything. That discipline of single tasking retrains your brain to stay present. Over time, your mind becomes sharper, calmer, and far more focused. Remember, everything. Your attention is the most valuable currency you have. Where it goes, your energy follows. And where your energy goes, your results grow. Protect it. Guard it like something sacred. Everything. Because it is. As you begin building your mental resilience, there will be days when you feel like nothing is working. You'll meditate and still feel restless. Everything. You'll plan and still face setbacks. But those are the moments that matter most. Growth hides in repetition. Power hides in persistence. You may not see progress day to day. Everything. But one morning you'll face a challenge that once would have broken you. And you'll handle it with calm confidence. That's how you know the work is working. Everything. Resilience is not an overnight achievement. It's the gradual rewiring of your emotional system, teaching your mind that peace and power can coexist, that focus and flow can be trained. Everything. That success is not just about what you do, but how you stay centered while doing it. Every deep breath you take in chaos, every decision you make under stress, everything. Every time you choose focus over fear, you're reprogramming yourself. And that's how you begin to walk differently through life. Not chasing calm, but carrying it within you. Everything. Not waiting for conditions to be perfect, but performing with power regardless of them. That's the essence of high performance. Clarity under pressure, strength without noise, everything. And resilience that doesn't need the world to be gentle in order to rise. Because the truth is, life will always test you. But when your mind becomes your anchor, everything, nothing can truly shake you. You stop being reactive, you start being intentional. You stop getting lost in distractions, you start living from alignment. And in that state, calm, focused, everything, grounded, you don't just survive the storm, you navigate it. You lead through it. You grow because of it. Everything. And that's when you realize the real power was never in avoiding the chaos. It was in mastering yourself within it. Everything. There comes a moment in every journey of transformation when you no longer have to remind yourself to act differently. You simply are different. The effort fades, the resistance quiets, everything. and the new way of being becomes your natural state. That's what it means to live from your new identity. It's not about pretending to be someone else, everything. It's about remembering who you were before the world told you who to be, and then consciously building the life that aligns with that truth. In the beginning, it takes effort, everything. Reprogramming your mind feels like walking uphill. You have to fight against years of conditioning, challenge your own thoughts, everything, and sometimes even outgrow the environments and relationships that once defined you. But as time passes, the work shifts from trying to become to simply being everything. The identity you once visualized becomes the one you wake up as. You start speaking differently. You carry yourself differently, everything. The decisions that used to cause you anxiety are now handled with calm certainty. That's not luck, it's the power of internal alignment. Think of a butterfly, everything. The caterpillar doesn't wish to fly, it's coded to evolve. But before the wings appear, it has to dissolve completely inside the cocoon, everything. That phase, where nothing looks like progress, is the stage most people abandon. They can't stand the uncertainty, the discomfort of not knowing who they are becoming, everything. But if you stay patient through that stage, your new identity begins to emerge. The same applies to your mindset. You must be willing to let parts of your old self dissolve. The excuses, everything. The doubts, the habits that once kept you safe but now keep you small. Living from your new identity means no longer negotiating with your potential. When you live from that place, everything, your choices shift automatically. You stop saying, "I'll try to wake up early," and instead you just do it. Because that's what the kind of person you are now does, everything. You stop chasing validation because your worth is no longer up for debate. You start moving with quiet certainty, not loud confidence that needs to be seen, everything, but the kind of inner conviction that doesn't need an audience. A person grounded in a new identity doesn't act from motivation. They act from embodiment, everything. Think of an athlete who doesn't need to psych themselves up every morning to train. It's simply part of who they are. The same principle applies to success in any area, everything. If you identify as someone disciplined, you don't have to convince yourself to follow through. Discipline is no longer something you do, it's who you are, everything. That's the secret of transformation most people overlook. Real change is identity-based. You can't build a new life from the mindset that created the old one, everything. You have to think from the future version of yourself, not toward it. Ask yourself, how would the successful version of me think, act, and respond in this moment? Would they complain, everything, or would they adapt? Would they procrastinate, or would they follow through? Would they doubt or decide? This is the mental rehearsal that rewires your reality, everything. Each time you choose from that higher version of yourself, you reinforce that identity until it becomes the only one that feels natural, everything. Living from your new identity also means releasing the need for constant evidence. You might not see results immediately, but your faith becomes stronger than your circumstances, everything. You stop measuring progress by external outcomes and start measuring it by internal consistency. Every time you act in alignment with your new standards, you are winning, everything, even on the days when no one notices. Especially on those days, there's a story of a man who planted bamboo seeds and watered them every day for years with no sign of growth, everything. People mocked him for wasting his time. Then, one day, the bamboo broke through the ground and shot up nearly 90 feet in just a few weeks. What people didn't see was that, all those years, everything. The roots were growing beneath the surface, strong enough to sustain what was coming. That's how identity growth works. You may not see it at first, but beneath the surface, everything. Your foundation is forming, and when it finally clicks, the results accelerate so fast that people call it luck. But you'll know it was the result of quiet, unseen alignment, everything. It's easy to get caught in old mental loops. You'll still have moments where the old self whispers, "Who do you think you are?" But when that happens, everything. You don't argue, you remind yourself, "I am no longer available for that version of me." That's a powerful declaration, everything. Living from your new identity requires boundaries. Not just with people, but with the thoughts and habits that no longer serve you. Every time you say no to your old patterns, everything, you're saying yes to your higher potential. The truth is, your brain doesn't care whether something is good or bad. It only cares whether it's familiar, everything. So when you start acting differently, your subconscious will try to pull you back to what feels normal, everything. That's why people relapse into old habits after progress, because they mistake discomfort for danger. But discomfort is just the sign that you're reprogramming everything. You're teaching your brain a new definition of normal. Over time, the new you becomes the comfort zone. That's when the shift becomes permanent. Everything. Imagine walking into a room full of people who knew the old you, the one who used to shrink, doubt, or over-explain. Now, you stand there calm and centered. Everything. No longer needing to prove anything. You're not cold, you're just grounded. You're not arrogant, you're self-assured. That energy changes how people respond to you. Everything. Because the world reflects who you are being, not what you're saying. When you embody confidence, opportunities begin to mirror that belief. You attract what you've become. Everything. Living from your new identity also means trusting your inner compass more than external noise. People may not understand your evolution. Everything. Some will question your change because it challenges their comfort. That's okay. You're not here to be understood. You're here to be authentic. Everything. You don't owe explanations for growth. The ones meant for your next level will recognize you by your energy, not your explanations. Everything. Every great transformation involves solitude. Not loneliness, but solitude. It's the quiet phase where you meet yourself without distraction. Everything. Where you stop seeking answers outside and start listening within. In those moments, you realize your power was never something you had to find. It was something you had to remember. Everything. The new identity doesn't add something to you, it removes everything that isn't you. What's left is clarity, purpose, and peace. Everything. One of the most effective ways to live from your new identity is through environment design. Don't rely solely on willpower. Build systems that reflect who you've become. Everything. If your new identity is disciplined, let your surroundings support that. Plan your mornings, remove distractions, set boundaries with your time. If your new identity is confident, everything. Dress the part, speak the part, move with intention. Your environment should mirror the standard you've set internally. The smallest cues. The music you play, the books you read, everything, the people you spend time with, all reinforce who you are becoming. And then, something incredible happens. The identity that once felt aspirational becomes instinctive. Everything. You stop needing motivation to act because it's simply what you do. You start saying no to things that used to tempt you, not out of guilt, but out of alignment. Everything. You begin to feel a deep sense of peace, not because everything is perfect, but because you finally trust yourself. You trust your habits, your instincts, your path. Everything. When you live from your new identity, success no longer feels like something you chase. It becomes a reflection of your state of being. Everything. You realize the most powerful form of success is not what you achieve, but who you become in the process. And who you've become, the person who thinks clearly, acts intentionally, everything, and moves with quiet power, was always within you. You just had to remove the noise to hear your own signal. This is the essence of living from the new identity. Everything. It's not a single decision, it's a daily embodiment. Each morning you wake up, you choose alignment over anxiety, purpose over pressure, and faith over fear. Everything. You look in the mirror and no longer see a work in progress. You see the result of every choice you refuse to give up on. The journey continues, but now it feels lighter. Everything. Because you're no longer running toward the life you want. You're walking as the person who already lives it.